All right, so we're back with Bryan Classics Volume 2. For Volume 2, we're going to talk about Bryan Danielson versus Loki from All-Star PWG All-Star Weekend 6. Night 1. And this show took place in January, the beginning of January 2008, brand new year, January 2008, right after Final Battle 2007. So at this time, Bryan Danielson was actually the PWG champion. I believe he actually won it from El Generico in July at the anniversary show, and Loki was actually like a surprise appearance. And this match actually took place at the beginning of the show. This is actually the first match on the show, so it was a huge shock. And without a doubt, I would say this is arguably Bryan Danielson's best match in PWG. If you had to pick between two, it's kind of a toss-up. It's between the match of Loki and the match with Chris Hero from Gear Sans Frontiers from 2009, Danielson's last PWG match. Yeah, but this was incredible. This was a great submission, technical based match. These guys stretched the crap out of each other. This is one of those matches that Stu Hart would love. Like if you went to train in the dungeon, this is how he would show you how to wrestle, and it was incredible. It was really a throwback to the Danielson and Loki. They have those matches that really take you back to like those ancient Greece, style of wrestling, like really technical. Lots of, submission. You got to be very flexible. Flexibility is a big part of the video. So what do you think of the match?
Well, it's funny you mentioned the ancient Greece. I think Loki, I feel like he's like an Incan warrior, or a Mayan warrior. He really does look like he stepped out of a time machine. He's just like a savage beast out there. I mean, if you're interested in going into wrestling or martial arts, this is a really great match to watch. I mean, you really get to see the versatility of both these guys. In particular, you see the versatility of Bryan Danielson. I'm always, I said this to you while we were watching, I'm always mesmerized by how Danielson's able to keep me engrossed in a match. He's able to keep my attention on a match, even when it's really slow and methodical. We're used to seeing a lot of wrestlers, Randy Orton gets a lot of shit because he'll put a headlock on his opponent in the ring. And if you look back at some old Bret Hart matches, you might look back and say, hey, this match was kind of slow and at times kind of boring, because they did some holds, some rest holds, but they didn't do a whole lot. Danielson just has so many tools. I mean, if you look back at what he used to do back then, and it's really refreshing for me to watch this match. I was glad you put this one on because he really took out the D. Malenko book in this one and just did hold after hold, and it's not like they didn't mean anything. It's not like, hey, look at this submission move, look what I can do. He strung them together all very well, and they told a really good story. And the coolest thing about this match was I was convinced, when you watch it, I was convinced Danielson was going to win, hands down, because he just seemed to have complete control of Loki. He really seemed to have control of him throughout the match. And then, the tables turn on a dime, and before you know it, Loki pulls out this victory. He puts Danielson in this maneuver,
Dragon Sleeper.
The Dragon Sleeper. He bends his neck. He torques his neck back so far. And I looked at you and I was like, shit, Danielson's gonna tap out. And I was pissed because I wanted him to win. But no, I was very impressed and what a really real pleasant surprise and very refreshing to see a match like this. Especially if you've been watching a lot of WWE lately, because you don't get this style of match out of WWE program.
I was thinking the same thing. I was just like, you just don't get to see this guy, do his thing like this anymore, and he won't ever probably be allowed to. It's like in the WWE, like I appreciate what he's doing, but like every single time he's got to hit an offensive move, he's got to do the yes thing. It's got to be something where the fans are going to have to chant it. And in this match, you get the total opposite of that.
Right, and environment has a big effect on that. This PWG environment. It was a small crowd.
Well, the remarkable thing about this is not the PWG used to not have very good crowds. It wasn't as easy to get the fans into it as it is today. So they really had to work hard and give them something different. And the crowd was rocking by the end of this match.
That's a good point. By the end of the match, they were. But, through the middle of the match, I didn't say it to you, but I almost looked at you and said, this crowd kind of sucks. Somebody tried to start a "you're going to get your effing head kicked in.
No one else helped him out.
And nobody helped him out. I was like, oh man, that kind of sucks. If this was Ring of Honor, everybody would have just...
In the beginning of 2008, ROH definitely had hotter crowds compared to PWG, which is kind of flip-flop now, believe it or not. But as far as the actual match goes, to me it seemed like Danielson really controlled. You're right, he controlled the match. He was more submission based. He really went to work on his arm, just the way he went to work on his arm. Even after Low-Ki would strike him back, it was pretty intense. But Low-Ki, I would say, give Low-Ki some credit as well. He hung in there with him submission for submission.
Oh yeah,
he's not a bad submission wrestler at all. But what really turned the match around was his strikes. Some of his chops, the Mongolian chops and the knife edge chops, just severely stiff, and Low-Ki is just he just has an incredible look. He definitely looks like a Shaolin monk. Yes. I guess that would be the perfect way to describe him. But I think he's actually like Italian, and he's from New York, like half Italian, half Puerto Rican. I think that's his heritage. He could pass for Japanese, I guess, even if. He definitely has that style mastered. But one of you were asking me about Low-Ki. You have some questions about Low-Ki. What were your questions about Low-Ki? Maybe people can answer them.
Just questions about. Well, I guess where is he now, and what is he doing?
He's just floating around the world to me. Like he'll show up in Evolve, then he'll show up in New Japan, and he hasn't consistently been a part of any promotions. Supposedly he's very tough to deal with. He never wants to lose. That's why the match was kind of predictable for me, because he doesn't, put people over. The only guy I've seen him put over is Xavier and Kenta. I really can't think of any other guys he's put over the years. But his run in the WWE, he won NXT. He was Caval, and then he ended up leaving because he just didn't enjoy it anymore.
Yeah, I see. Well, I don't know. I mean, that was basically my only question, is where is he now? Because he was, and that's one of the great things about doing these videos, is we get to look back, 5, 6, 7 years ago, or more than that, sometimes 10 years ago, and see these great talented guys that, some of them we don't see as often, or some of them we might not be seeing at all.
Yeah.
So
I don't know what Low-Ki's doing now, but from what I've been told, he's a pain in the ass to work with.
Yeah, well, that's not a good thing if you're in the wrestling business. You gotta lose before you win. But,
I don't know. But as far as the match goes, I thought it was great. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't just like a submission based match. It definitely did have a lot of high spots from Low-Ki with his Warriors Way double stomp on Danielson. A lot of awesome counters. Danielson tried the high spot, and Low-Ki kicked him right in the face. Just amazing stuff. If this match had taken place in ROH, it might have been one of the best ROH matches of all time.
Yeah, it would have been interesting to see how the crowd in ROH would have gotten behind it, because I think they would have.
Yeah.
Although I like to think that they would have sped things up a little quicker in front of a bigger crowd, in front of an ROH crowd.
Yeah. No, they really took their time. Yeah.
Yeah, they took their time. It was slow. It was methodical. But if you like submission wrestling, you really get to see the versatility of these guys.
It talks about the flexibility. If you're not flexible and if you're not prepared, talk about how dangerous it is to wrestle this style of match.
Well, if you're like me and you play Super Mario 64 all your life, and then you roll out of bed and you eat Cheerios mixed with Aldi brand flake cereal, and then you never stretch, then I'd probably die from my tendons snapping. I think Danielson could probably make me tap out in just about 3 seconds. That's how flexible I am. But if you're going to be like one of these guys, they're so flexible. There's one part of the match where Danielson basically treats Low-Ki like it's like a chicken wishbone. He's got two of his arms bent behind his back, and he's like gonna pull his shoulder out of his socket.
Yeah.
Bryan
and Nigel used to do that too. That is scary to watch when he does that submission.
Yeah, but they know what they're doing though.
Oh yeah,
and they know how to do it without hurting each other, and that's an art right there. That's the art of professional wrestling.
This is probably the best match, maybe one of the best matches ever taken place on the West Coast, quite possibly. So Yeah, so that's pretty much it, guys. I really want to see Danielson as a heel again, and maybe one day we'll see him wrestle this kind of style with this type of persona in the WWE. That's what I really want to see.
He should shave his head when he turns heel. He should shave his head bald, but keep the beard, and he should pretend that he has like a leg injury. I don't know. I have this whole app mapped out. Like he's this imp. He's like the troll guy on Game of Thrones. He's like this. He's like the midget, but he comes out and he hits people with his crutches, and then he puts them in the cattle mutilation, and it's gonna be awesome. But I think we got a few years before we see that.
All right, so Volume 3 will be next, and Volume 3 will be versus Roderick Strong from Vendetta.